Hey, it's Pastor Chuck Huckaby. I wanted to review with you this book, the Books of the Bible, New Testament, and I wanted to go over two things today: why you should have your people use this resource, at least for an 8-week period, and why you as a pastor or church leader is going to benefit from doing that. The first thing is, let's be honest, how do most of our people, even people who've grown up in church, look at the Bible? They look at the Bible the same way they look at the manual for their lawnmower. How do I start this? Oh, go to section A. Oh, I have to fix this. Where do I go? Oh, that's in section Z. That's not how the Bible is written, is it? Why your people need to be using the books of the Bible, New Testament, is so that they learn to read the Bible as literature, as a gospel story, or as a letter from the Apostle Paul, because otherwise they're just going to look at it in isolated verses to find the things they want to hear and take it out of context. Now, that's true even if for lay people they're well trained. We've had folks who are heavily involved in interdenominational Bible study training systems who, before they got into the study, considered each verse as an individual unit. So they read one verse and then another, and even though they're in the same context and part of the same message, consider them to be at odds and contradictions. But the contradictions are resolved when people start to read the Bible as sentences and paragraphs in a larger context. Now, how's this going to happen? Well, the reason it's not happening is because the Bibles that your people use, and I use, and my people use, have chapters and verse divisions. What that means is they start reading, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, or whatever they start, and they think, and we think, we've done some heroic task to make it to the end of the chapter. Well, the Bible wasn't written so that we could stop at arbitrary points. The Gospels are one grand narrative of the life of Jesus each. A letter is a whole letter designed to convey a whole message. When the letter of Colossians arrived in Colossae, it wasn't designed to be read over 8 different weeks. It was designed to be read right on the spot. So if we start reading the Bible in big chunks instead of the piecemeal way we do now, we're going to get a better idea of what it says in context. The way the books of the Bible, New Testament, does that is it eliminates chapter and verse divisions. Now, at the bottom of each page, you can see the chapters and verses that you're covering, but as far as picking out a verse, unless you remember the verse, there's nothing in the text itself say, oh, this is verse 1, this is verse 2, etc., etc. This lets your people read and not have artificial signals to distract them and stop them. It lets them get involved in the Scriptures and keep reading until the apostle or the gospel writers had a chance to say what they're going to say. It's as simple as that. Now, regardless of what translation is favorite in your church, this format is going to help. Some people think, well, my church uses the ESV, so it will just confuse them to use the books of the Bible because it's a different translation. Well, that's true. It is a different translation. It's the 2011 revision of the New International Version. But I'm telling you, it is not going to hurt your people to use this. It's probably going to be a break for them to read it in another translation, and you can always go back to your favorite translation afterwards. We're just talking about an 8-week period. Get them in here, and they will finally, for instance, when they read 1 Corinthians and Galatians and 2 Corinthians, they'll realize that the Apostle Paul has a personality. He is not the owner's manual to a lawnmower. He's alive with a passion for the glory of God. And so he's writing to people with a lot of problems, and he is at his most pastoral. In the book of Galatians, he's just hopping mad, isn't he? But they'll know that by the time this is done, the Bible's not just an owner's manual for the lawnmower. They'll see that the Bible is one great narrative, because they're going to start with the book of Luke and go to the book of Acts. They'll have an overview of the life of Christ and the life of the early church. Then they're going to go through Paul's letters. They're going to go through Matthew, Hebrews, James, 1st and 2nd Peter, Jude. Then they're going to have Mark, then John's Gospel and letters, and the book of Revelation. They're going to have it in a completely different order. That'll help them get into it better. They're not going to be distracted by chapter and verse numbers. And the translation, it may be a change of pace too. But altogether, you're going to find people going, wow, this is easy to read like a book. And whenever you started, let's read the Bible this year, they didn't come back to you and say that. But that, in my experience, is what they're going to come back and say when you do an 8-week reading through the New Testament. Now, that's why your people should use this. Here's why you as a pastor should do this with your people. Because you're going to have a weekly discussion group, and you're going to say one time, anybody got any questions? And you're going to find out they have a lot of questions. If you're wondering, what do people want to hear about in my sermons, you just write down the questions and you'll find out what they want to hear about. You're also going to find out how much you forgot since you took your New Testament survey class. Because you just never know what they're going to ask. Now, it came out to me, what are they going to ask? I was surprised. Things that I thought they'd ask about never came up. Things that I'd never dreamed of preparing to talk about, well, guess what? That's what they ask about. So you, as a pastor, are going to be put on your toes. You're going to have to get into the text yourself. You're going to have to answer questions. And guess what? It's okay to say, hey, I don't know the answer to that. For every hour we spent in discussion every week, I spent at least another 2 hours answering questions by email. Now, that kept me on my toes. I loved it. If you want to be on your toes, you're going to love it too. So those are the 2 reasons that I would suggest any pastor consider using the books of the Bible, New Testament, because it's going to expose your people to the Bible as it's meant to be read. They're going to be able to get into it in ways they probably never did before. I don't care how long they've been a Christian. And 2, you're going to be on your toes in a new way that you haven't been since you were in seminary. Anyway, please leave your questions or comments. A full written review, if you're seeing this on YouTube or on my blog, soulfriend.org, there's going to be a link to the written review. It's quite a bit different than this video. And so thanks for listening. I hope you like the reviews, and I'll be talking to you later. This is Pastor Chuck Huckaby. Thanks for visiting.